Hello, my name's Stuart Easton from Transparent Choice. Thank you for choosing our software, and you're about to engage in a process to improve the strategic alignment of your project portfolio. And one of the key things is to figure out and to really have central in your mind why that matters. Right. So, what is strategic alignment and why it matters is really the goal for this video. It should just be a few minutes long, hopefully not too long, but it's good to have this in mind. Now, if you've got this far with us already, you've probably seen these numbers before, right? So alignment really matters. Projects that are aligned with strategy are just far more successful. I'm not going to spend a load of time on that. But the key thing is that traditional ways of aligning the projects to your strategic goals clearly doesn't work, because PMI data shows about 20% of projects are so badly aligned that they should be stopped tomorrow. Okay, that's a good definition of waste. And at the same time, we have this crazy situation where 50% of projects are not resourced properly, and when projects aren't resourced properly, people start juggling, and then this happens, right? Everything goes everywhere, it gets very messy. So this is why strategic alignment matters. If you can align your portfolio with your strategy, you can decide which projects to do, and just as importantly, you can decide which projects not to do, so that you never end up in this position. So it's about, delivering real business value, but it's also about delivering consistency and predictability in your projects, making your delivery more reliable, sometimes by doing less. Now, why is this so difficult? I mean, if the executive team, which is the case in most organizations, the executive team, the leadership team, decides which projects to do, surely they know what the strategy is and they can align the projects, right? Surely that's it. The job's done. Well, no. And for a very simple reason. Your executive team, your leadership team may come to work in the same building, but they come to work for different companies. In their minds, they have a very different perception of what the business is doing, what the state of the business is. They have a different journey through the business. They have different experience. They have different goals and personalities. And that usually means that they have a very different vision of what they're trying to achieve as an organization. So it's almost as if they work for different companies. People call them stovepipes and things like that. But fundamentally, it comes down to different people's different experience and broken communication. And so the big question is, if everybody has a different understanding of what strategic alignment means, what the strategic direction of the organization should be, whose definition do we use? Well, so before we can answer that, we need to think about what strategic alignment is. And for the purposes of prioritizing projects, and I emphasize that, for the purpose of prioritizing projects, strategic alignment is about having a clear statement from the executive team or the leadership team which defines what is valuable, right? So our direction is this, therefore these projects are valuable, and that they all agree with, right? That's the strategic alignment that matters. If you get that statement, and it usually comes in the form of weighted criteria, like the image on the right is just a map of the criteria with the relative weights of those different criteria. Usually it comes in some form of weighted criteria. And if you have that and everybody agrees with that, then picking projects is easy, because you just score the projects against the criteria. Right, so this is the tough bit, right? This is the heart of the whole of project prioritization, and actually the whole of value delivery from project portfolios. Because if you're doing the wrong things, you're not delivering value. Now, we saw earlier that 20% of projects are the wrong projects. At least 20% of the projects are the wrong projects. So how does that happen? Because, there are a lot of smart people out there with great spreadsheet skills going out and building weighted scoring models today, but we still have all this waste. Well, let's run an imaginary meeting, right? So in this meeting, we've got the leadership team together, the board together, and we put up on the whiteboard the list of criteria that we're thinking of using. and we say, great, criterion 1, what weight shall we put on criterion 1? And the CEO stands up and she says, I think it should be 23.7%. Right, that's the weight on that criterion. Now, there are two things about that. The first thing is that that number is meaningless. If you look at the psychology research, and Dan Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow, is a great read if you want to learn more about this. But basically, that number's just been plucked out of nowhere. And your CEO would be able to defend it if you challenge them, right? They would kind of retrofit logic to that number, but really, it's just come from nowhere. It's just been plucked out of the subconscious and thrust forward. So that's the first thing, is that that number's kind of meaningless. The second thing is what happens in other people's heads now, right? So this guy, he's kind of thinking, well, I don't agree with that, but do I really want to take on the boss, right? Do I want to have an argument about this, right? So that's not him thinking about what is important to the business. That's him thinking about politics. Right? So now this decision is no longer being driven by rationality or alignment. It's being driven by politics, right? So this one just kind of says, I'll put my head down, and over here you got someone thinking, well, this model's meaningless, so I better get my project in before anybody else does, right? So suddenly we've lost control of the process completely. Nobody's thinking about what's strategically important, and there's a complete lack of buy-in. There's no alignment being driven amongst the team, and it's all about politics and salesmanship. So we can do something about this, and this is kind of the secret sauce in transparent choices. We use this really well proven method called AHP, analytic hierarchy process. Don't worry about what it means right now. What's important is that you understand that it's going to walk you through a structured collaboration process with the leadership team, where instead of saying, what percentage should we put on this criterion, we present pairs of criteria. Right? And we ask the question, is A or B more important, and by how much? And crucially, we do that as a team, right? So we can see who's voted which way. And then we can have a discussion that says, well, gee, Mr. CFO, can you explain to us your perspective? And explain why you voted out there. And gee, Mr. VP of Sales, can you explain why you voted in the other direction? You have a discussion. And what happens is that the executives start to communicate clearly, properly, in a structured way. And because it's structured, they get through it quickly. And they typically will converge fairly quickly on a common understanding. And because they've done that, when you've got the model, the software goes through all the different pairs of criteria and it figures out what's the best fit to all the answers that I've been given. And it uses that to create the weighted criteria model that you use to score your projects, which leads us on, because the executives have been involved in that, because they feel ownership, you get clear results that everybody buys into and supports. And that is strategic alignment in the context of project prioritization, where you can get everyone pointing in the same direction with a common understanding of what's valuable, and then use that to score projects so you can work out which ones are the best value for money. They're going to give the best value to the organization for the investment that you have to make. So that's really it. In the context of prioritization, that's what strategic alignment means, and that's why it matters.